Evening, everyone. We're going to get started. Welcome to the second March Hoboken Board of Education meeting. This is a special meeting for the adoption of the budget. I just want to clarify that a little bit. The board will not be voting on the budget tonight, but rather the administration presents their draft budget to the board, and now it is in the board's hands to review. It will also be sent to the county for their review. And then there will be two meetings in May. The first will be a detailed budget hearing, and the second will be where the board votes on the budget, and those dates are May 7th and 14th. So with that being said, can we have the statement of compliance, Mr. Bolden?
Sure. This meeting is being held in conformity to the Open Public Meeting Act's NJSA 1046 and sequence. Proper public notice of the meeting was published in the local papers on March 14, 2019 and March 16, 2019. If any board member or member of the public in attendance believes that the meeting is in violation of the Open Public Meeting Act, the Hoboken Board of Education requests that they make a statement at this time. The board wishes to make those in attendance aware that this meeting is being recorded on video and will be broadcast by the board at a later date on cable TV channel 77 and Files channel 46. The full meeting recording will also be made available on board docs, which can be accessed through the district homepage. The Hoboken Board of Education is committed to preserving the decorum of the public process and is mindful that we live in the electronic age of computers, cell phones, and other electronic communication devices. Nevertheless, we respectfully request that all meeting participants kindly silence their electronic devices during the course of the meeting, and if use of the device is necessary, we ask that you please leave the meeting room if you need to conduct personal business. Stand for the salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we take the roll, please?
Sure. Ms. Catamatori.
Here.
Ms. Delara.
Here.
Mr. Delatorre.
Here.
Ms. Evans.
Here.
Ms. Khanna.
Here.
Mr. Klupfel.
Here.
Ms. McGuirk.
Here.
Ms. Takirian.
Here.
And Ms. Angley.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, there's no other business on the agenda tonight, so with that being said, I will turn the meeting over to our business administrator, Mr. Bolden.
Okay, do we take a public comment first? Was there anyone that signed up? Says public comment. Yes. Great.
I know she
He said.
We're just going to take a minute for it to light up there. So we're going over today is the preliminary budget, or the adoption of the tentative budget, or what I like to call the introductory budget. It's all the same thing. We don't adopt the final budget until May. We have to submit the budget to the county after the adoption tonight of the tentative budget. So, being that I'm new here, I just want to go over my theory of, managing the budget as a district. The budget is, in my view, it's a living, breathing document. It's always changing, and we're always going to be reacting to new things that come about, such as reductions in state aid or whatever, and we're always going to be working to efficiently use our resources for the best outcome for our students. So, that's great. So on slide 3, I'm going to go over a few of the budget highlights for this coming year. We're fortunate to be provided with another 7 pre-K classrooms in the district. That brings us up to 66 pre-K classes. This budget also provides for increases in contractual salary arrangements and health benefit costs, and we will be continuing to address the instructional and technological needs of the school district. I'm viewing this budget, as a maintenance budget. There's not a whole lot of new initiatives in this budget. So, slide 4 is a big pie chart of our operational budget, or what I like to call the appropriation side or the expense side of the budget. If you look at the purple, blue, and green being the regular programs and instruction, the charter schools, and the employee benefits, those 3 pieces of the pie total just under 58% of our budget. And if you add in special ed instruction, special ed tuitions, child study team, support services, and transportation, which is mostly related to special ed, you're getting up to about 78% of our total budget. If we go to slide 5, that covers the other piece there. It's the bright green piece, which is just over 10% of our budget. So one of the things to note here is that central administration and technology is just under 3% of our budget. Oh, I'm sorry, it's just over 3% of our budget. If you also look at the capital projects or section of our budget, mostly that's our capital leases, which are for technology in the district. That may need to increase a little more in the coming years. Basically, the idea of most school districts in the state now are trying to get up to a level where we can flat fund technology. We're almost there. And one of the great things about technological improvements is that you continuously get more and more for about the same price, as there's always improvements and efficiencies coming out. So that kind of is an overview of all the different areas of our operating budget. So really, the key budget drivers for this year's budget, if you look at 3 focuses here. So one of the issues, charter schools have increased significantly 2 years in a row. This year, it will be approximately $652,000, a little more. One of the issues is we know that they kind of measure it 3 times. This will be the first time that they're coming up with an estimate, and then after the October 15th student count, they'll give us a much firmer number. I know that's in the past here, that's gone back and forth between them coming out with a very high estimate, and then after the October 15th count is significantly less, which obviously creates problems for using our resources here in the school district effectively. But this current year that we're in, the estimates came in, pretty close to the original. So in 2 years, the charter schools look like they're going to increase about 14%. So historically, too, just to look at that a little closer, over the last 9 years, we've averaged almost 8.4% growth in our charter school piece of the pie. So it's definitely driving the bus, so to speak. No pun intended, or I should say pun intended. The second driver are our special education, tuitions, and transportation costs is another big chunk of what's driving. So those increases this year are a little over $900,000. Now, partially that's due to, in the current budget, we were a little light on our special ed out-of-district tuitions. Once again, that's a very difficult number to pinpoint. It can be significantly impacted by a new family moving into town that has, sometimes they have out-of-district students already in place in their IEP. Now, we obviously review that over time, but it takes time to adjust to that. So we were a little light this year, so it's really almost a 2-year increase there. One of the third major drivers, obviously every year employee benefits go up. For our non-certificated staff, so our certificated staff are teachers and certificated administrators like myself, the assistant superintendent, the superintendent. They have administrative certificates, so their pension costs get picked up by the state, all over the state. No matter how wealthy or poor the district is, the state pays all the TPAF contributions, but the PERS contributions go up significantly. We're at over 14% now, so our employees that are in PERS, over 14% of their salary is contributed by the employer. Employees contribute 7.5% currently. They staggered the increase there over the last 7 years. It went from 6.5% to 7.5% for the employee piece of the pension. So those three pieces that are driving this current budget are 80% of the total increase in our revenue side of the budget for this year. So slide 7, we're looking at our revenues for the year. Our local tax levy is the largest piece of our budget. The next slide is a pie chart of our revenue projections. So currently the local tax levy is almost 80% of our budget, and with the state aid adjustments and the new laws that have been passed over the next 5 years, our state aid will be reduced over time. So that is based on what the state calculates for every school district. So just to go back a little bit, historically it was about 12 or 13 years ago that they passed the current funding act that are supposed to fund all the districts in the state, but that law was never really enacted. So finally, when Governor Murphy came in, they started to look at, okay, well, we have a funding formula, let's try to enact it. So it's been, a lot of back and forth. But that is based on an adequacy budget that all the school districts in the state, they go through the numbers and they determine, well, how can each community fund their budget? What piece of their budget should be funded through the tax levy and what piece should be funded through the state? So, and those two factors are mainly, the only two factors are the community's income and the property tax level. So that's what's driving our decrease in state aid over the next 5 years is our high property values and our relatively high income levels here in the community. So that pie will continue to shift over the next 5 years. Through larger percentage of our budget will be funded through the tax levy. We are utilizing the full tax levy this year. It's forecasted to go up 5.41%. So the next really 4 slides are basically summaries of all the programs that we're continuing to provide. We are not reducing programs. We are going to work to continue to implement all the programs that have been rolled out. Athletics, all these different things that we've been working on over the last number of years. And those are basically the highlights of the budget presentation. Are there questions from the board?
Do you want to touch a little bit on the state aid cuts and what we're experiencing this year?
Yes. So we've lost just over $450,000 this year in state aid. So they've given us a roadmap over the next 5 years, and it does ramp up each year for the next 2 years. Next year will be a little over 800,000 as forecasted, and the 21-22 will be over $1 million loss. So that will be the kind of peak, and then the losses will then decrease till the 5th year. So we're not going to lose all our state aid. So there are other categories of state aid that are based on our student population. We get transportation aid, and special education aid is probably the biggest piece of that. So if we had a higher percentage of special education students in the future, we would get a little more there. But those pieces are currently, they're under $5 million in total of the they call it adjustment aid now, because as I was talking about a little bit, when they froze the funding formula, so it used to be called equalization aid, which is how they equalize how each district can educate the students fairly. But that's a summary of kind of where we're going with the state aid.
I know in the past, the board has met with the business administrator in non-quorum small groups to kind of dive into the budget between now and May, when we ultimately have to vote on it. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions over the next month to 6 weeks, and we'll set those meetings up with you. But
That's great.
does anyone else have
Look
any
forward to that.
questions tonight?
I kind of touched it in the beginning, so we will submit the budget. It's due tomorrow. We're ready to go. We will submit the budget to the county, and then they do their review process and come back with feedback. The county administration team is very efficient now, so we think they'll get back to us pretty quickly. We don't assume there's going to be too many issues there, and they'll get back to us well ahead of our May 7th is actually it is actually the last day that we're statutorily have to hold the public hearing by May 7th. So we'll have that on May 7th, and then we will, in the regular meeting, vote on the adoption of the final budget.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. If no one has anything, and we look forward to meeting with you to understand this a little bit more.
Excellent, thank you.
And I guess the next thing we'll do is public comments. I know you're familiar, but I just want to remind you of the board policy. Please state your name, municipality of residence, and business affiliation, if any, and you're allowed 5 minutes.
Brian Murray, 1100 Maxwell Lane. Aside from the numbers, it is a little concerning to me that the board is voting on a budget that they are going to send to the county that doesn't seem like anybody has any questions about. So it's not that you're overly familiar with it, other than you're going to learn about it after you send it to the county, which to me seems like maybe you should have done it the other way, and been a little more familiar, so when the county comes back, then there's the ability to have a conversation about it. So we could all avoid the issues of this budget, and I come up here every year and say it, if we put the budget to a vote, to a public vote every year. I mean, year after year we come here and we're told, hey, it's only a 2% cap, but every year the budget goes to, the 16-17 budget went up 3.2%. The 17-18 budget went up 4.5%. It's proposed 18-19 budget or 19-20 budget is 5.41%. Over the last 3 years, that's a total of 13.66% increase in the budget, and it's just a maintenance budget. That's all this is a maintenance budget. If we put this budget out to vote and we have a community discussion about what is the direction of the schools in this town, with all the growth that we have, with the issues that we have for capital improvements and needs. If we put a budget out to vote that addresses a 5 or a 10-year plan as to really what we need and not just stopgap, 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 I think we as a community will be a lot better But every year, it's, well, we're just going to we're going to tell everybody it's 2%, but then it's going to be 3.2 and 4.5 and 5.4%. And then we get these presentations that the numbers are just a little bit smoothed, if you will. And I mean, you might be new here, but, you know, in your presentation, I'm sure there's going to be an impact on the taxpayer and the average property taxes. Well, I can tell you over the past 15 months, there are 942 condos sold in Hoboken, of which the median dollar amount was $740,000. That translates to a tax bill of $8,694. So over the past 3 years, it's essentially a $300 a year increase per median household. That means 50% of them are going to be higher than 300 and 50% of them are going to be lower than 300. So it's not a few dollars here and there. It just keeps going up, and all we're doing is plugging a gap and plugging a gap versus having a conversation of what we should be. You know, when you look at where the money goes, just as you said, I think that what we saw there was, well, there's going to be a $2.5 million increase, but then there's $1 million of it goes to, you know, some IEP of the $2.5 million increase. Okay, but, you know, and then another $500,000 goes to benefits. So we really don't get anything for our increase except more taxes, but no plan. I've been coming here for too many years, since my kids were really small, and there still is no plan. I don't see it. I look around this room here, and it's this beautiful room that needs renovation. To have a sound system and plays and everything. I mean, same thing with the high school, same thing with a lot of the buildings. There's no real plan. And if there is, I'd love to see it, but it costs money. And what that means, it means to go out to the public and say, here's what we need. If we need a 20% increase in our taxes in order to get schools that work, then put it out there. I personally am for it. It makes the community better. But to just continue to nickel and dime us for something that isn't marginally better. Yeah, everything's getting a little better, but it's been a decade and it's not dramatically better. And a decade is a long time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Murray. I'm also new here. I had a question. I believe that part of the protocol is to state your business affiliation, if any. I didn't hear that part of it when you came up. I heard your name.
I don't have business before the board.
No business affiliation in the city?
I'm a realtor. If that's
Okay.
what you-
No, I just wanted to, I thought that was what we were
But
needing to know.
I thought you meant as far as if I have a business affiliation with the board.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that a new policy?
Nope, not a new policy.
Okay. Well, I'm a realtor, in case you
Okay,
didn't know.
thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers tonight?
I have none on the list.
Okay, then we'll move to voting on the adoption of this introductory budget. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Great. Ms. Catamatori,
Yes.
Ms. Delara,
Yes.
Mr. Delatorre,
Yes.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Khanna,
Yes.
Mr. Klipfel,
Yes.
Ms. McGuirk,
Yes.
Ms. Takirian,
Yes.
and Ms. Angley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, since there's no other speakers, that concludes our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.